that aren't. So we have people that are not coachable and people that are coachable. She's coachable. So I feel like she's had missteps, just like Joe Biden. They both have had missteps, but they're coachable, and she can be my person. Like, she can stand up for me in a way that I can connect with and understand and support. So having her on that ticket means a lot to me. But I will tell, there was a moment, and I told Wendy I was going to mention this. There was a moment last year that was even more important when Adrian Jones became Speaker of the House in Maryland. I was like, because she is, not to be colorist, she is a brown skinned woman like me. Like, she looks like she is a Black woman, and she is strong, and she is there, and she is not taking any guff from anybody. Like, she's the person that doesn't even need coaching. Like, she walked in there and was like, I am ready to whip all y'all into shape, and we're going to do this. And she is amazing. And she's right in our own backyard. She represents me every single day on local legislation to make sure that my needs are represented. And she comes in and she says, I'm a Black woman, and this is what I'm doing, and this is where I stand. And I really appreciate that. Kamala has a little way to go. Love her. She's awesome. She has a little way to go, but she's has a different background than I do. I don't necessarily see myself in her like I do in Adrian Jones. But I know that she's going to represent me, and I know that she's going to be a person that I can have a discussion with my kids about, not just about her position, but about who she is as a person. Which is the same thing that happened with Michelle Obama. Like, when she was in office, I'm gonna just say that when she was in office, she definitely was somebody that you talked about at the dinner table. You talked about her with your children, with your family. You had this role model that was every single day present, and she made a difference. And can I just say one more thing? I know I'm talking a lot. Okay, so one more thing.
Say whatever you want.
when I was in Now, I read this book called Cinderella Ate My Daughter. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it, but I raised two girls. One of them's 18, one of them's 19. And it talks about how representation in their lives is so important. So if you buy your children, if you let them watch like Disney princesses, they kind of get an idea of what life is like as an adult woman. Like, they kind of internalize that. And not that Disney princesses, Ariel is awesome, and and so is Cinderella. Like, they're all fine. None of them look like my children. So when I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, well, who do I pick if they want to be someone for Halloween? Who do I select? Like, right. What Disney princess can my daughter be for Halloween? And I don't want her dressing up as, no offense, as a blonde hair, blue eyed white woman. Like, to me, that's not real.
Right.
So it causes you to go through like this reckoning, this intellectual thought process about parenting that is not necessarily top of mind. I did not think about that before I read this book. Right now, I'm reading a book called Hood Feminism, which is doing the same thing with issues. That's a good book, right? So it's doing the same things with women issues, and the intersectionality of being Black and being a woman that are, and being socioeconomically depressed or challenged. It's Hood Feminism, and then Cinderella Ate My Daughter, two different books. But it's taking me to another level of consciousness on how I interpret the world as a Black woman, because there are things that happen to you as a Black woman that other women or other Black men might not be able to understand on its face. And that's something I learned, a while ago, especially when I was running the chamber, but especially like right now, it's a moment. We are saying George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. I'm just saying, Breonna Taylor is a woman just like me, who was doing nothing wrong and got shot up in her own home. Like, I don't know why we're not mourning that as women every single day. Like, she should be on our lips, out of our mouths. Her name should be on our minds. We should be so enraged because they're not, like, it wasn't even a topic of conversation. Like, it wasn't even a topic of conversation. And I saw Daveed Diggs, who is one of my favorite activists. He's also amazing in Hamilton, but he's amazing. He's just amazing. He's another one. Something happened to him, I'm going out. Like I'm done. I can't take Chadwick Boseman and Daveed Diggs. He's like the one I got left. So he is amazing.
We all need to send blessings to Daveed.
Yes, him and RBG. Like those two people, we got to keep living forever. But he wore a shirt that said, "How respectable does a woman have to be before we mourn her?" He wore that on an interview on national television. And I said, why is that not the question on everybody's lips? As women and as Black women, I feel that a lot, because that could be me.
Right.
That could be me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, those are my stories. I'm stopped talking now.
No,
I'll give a breath.
Those are good. So
I'm sorry, Wendy.
I had a chance to look in the chat for any specific questions. So guys, if anyone has a question for Alicia, like raise your hand, or you can put them in the chat. But so I'll ask, kind of bringing it to conscious capitalism, and so many businesses in this, since June, or it seems some beforehand, are finally looking at diversity, equity, inclusion. They're looking at racial equity. They're putting policies in place if they didn't have them. Like what is the value of being an organization or person that embraces that diversity practice? And what do you recommend for businesses, individuals, that they can do on a small and growing level? I know that's really broad, but
well, let me just say that first of all, I want to commend you to even the work that you're doing in conscious capitalism. This is good work, and being equitable and being fair-minded and being conscious of how you affect the world at large is what we need more of. A lot of business owners do not think that way.
Right.
There is a different mode of being in business mind and being conscious. You have to be both in order to be a good business owner. So I think that this is a start of it. Being conscious of how you interact with the world and how you interact with your community, and making sure that you're equitable is a great start. Now, let me say, it also does pay you back, because do you know how many, and I don't know who else reads the ads in the newspaper like this. I read it. When I read the paper, I read with a racial equity lens. So I read it as a Black woman, because I don't know how to read it as anything else. So when I see Target or Starbucks, or these major corporations making huge issues with putting things out into the media about with ads or statements or anything like that, I'm like, you know what? If you had anybody Black or brown read this and they had support, they would have told you it was incorrect. Like, this was not something that somebody read, they had support to say no, and you put it out anyway. Like, you didn't have anybody read this. Like, this is ridiculous. And there's a lot of that. So I will say, most of the things I find out when I see something and I look at it, I'm like, that looks crazy to Black people. Like, why would that be what you put out? And it's because they don't have enough diversity. They don't have enough people in the room that have support. Not just, so diversity, I find, is a funny word, because some people think it means that you bring a Black person and a woman and a Jewish person to the table and they give you diversity. That's not what diversity is. So if we're talking about, yes, inclusion. If we're talking about inclusion, we want people to not only be at the table, but feel like they have a voice, and feel like that voice is there and it's strong. So that's what we need. There are organizations that just don't have that, and they need to step it up. And when they call, so I get a lot of calls from companies, right, especially right now, that want to diversify. And I'm like, do you really? Is what you want to do check a box? Is that what you want to do? Because I'm not here to help you check a box. I'm here to change your hearts and minds. So if you are interested in going on that journey, we can talk about that. But if you have one person of color at a table, that is not diversity. That is not what you just did. What you just did is you played tokenism, and you made somebody really uncomfortable. That's what you did. Because I've been in those rooms. I've been in the rooms where I am the only, shoot, I worked at Ellicott City Partnership. I was the only Black person. I used to see Black people on the street like, hey, how'd you find out about us? Like, come back, please. Thank you. My coffee has arrived.
Oh,
Thank you.
yay. Oh, you did this without coffee so far?
Yes.
I am so impressed. Hey, while you're have a sip of coffee, I just wanted to shout out to the Wendy Slaughter and Elevate Realty team for helping to sponsor our Conscious Coffee today. Yay, Wendy Slaughter!
Yes.
Realty. Check them out and check out Wendy's website. She's all over social media and you know, she puts good stuff in the world all the time. And so thank you for the shout out to Conscious Capitalism. It is supposed to be baked into what we do. We just wrote a blog about it that, guess what? Even though we are implicitly elevating humanity, and you know, we are about conscious leadership, conscious culture, higher purpose, and stakeholder orientation. Those are the pillars of conscious capitalism. It means different things to different people. And so this chapter is getting very explicit about what we are doing, how we are changing, how we are moving forward. So I appreciate that perspective that you just shared about, you know, am I here to check off a box? No. And unfortunately, sometimes that is part of how people start. But I'm like, you know what, even if you're starting that way, but I love what you said. I'm here to change your hearts and minds, not just check off the box. Right. That is fantastic. So tell us more about that. Continue on.
I want to say that this job is not just my job. It is my purpose. It is my calling. And there is nothing that will take me away from it. And no one is going to take me off point. So when I get a call from someone that wants to check a box, I'm like, you need to call someone else. And I have no fear in that. I'm like, you need to call someone else. That's not what I'm about. Because it is my job and my calling and my purpose deeper than just a paycheck. It is really about me being impactful to the world at large. And this is just my vehicle. If they didn't hire me, I would still be doing this work. I was doing this work before, I'll be doing this work after, and I'll be doing this work for the rest of my life.
You were doing this work at Ellicott City Partnership.
I was trying. But I mean, this is really a good vehicle for me to do the work. But if tomorrow this organization, you know, God forbid it folded, we, you know, lost all our money, you know, playing the lotto, I don't know. My work would still go on. I'm still purposeful and passionate about the work that I am doing, and nothing will take me off course. So I don't have time to help people check boxes or put one brown person at a table at your boardroom. Because I have had boards call me and say, how do I get a Black board member? That's the wrong question, Boo. That's the wrong question. Right. The question is, how do you diversify your network? That's the question you should be asking me. How do you create relationships with people that are not just blonde hair, blue eyed, and white? That's a good question. And if that's what you want to know, we can talk. If you want to ask me, how do you get a Black person on your board for a photo op? I am not the one.
I love that. Okay, so we've got some questions for you. From Ebony, how can people uncover their unconscious racial bias?
Oh, Ebony.
That was a big one.
I was going to say, if I knew the answer to that. I'll share with you that I also have, I don't want to make this seem like it is just white people that have unconscious racial bias. I also have unconscious racial bias. My kids have unconscious racial bias. My daughter is terrified to talk to old white men. That's a thing she said to me. Please don't tell her I told you that, but she will be mad at me. But
we're not recording.
Thank you. But that's a thing that she shared with me, because every interaction she has had, or she has seen other people have been terrifying to her. She's never been embraced as a young Black woman. She's never been heard. She's been ignored. She's been like, and I mean, maybe she's only met 20 in her short life. She's 19, but we have to dig through that, because if not, she may miss chances for her to actually be enlightened and connect with somebody genuinely just because of their facade. So I'm working on that. And I think we all have to work on that. And I'll say to you, one of the things you have to do is you have to acknowledge it. And then work really hard at it. It's much like if you're trying to lose weight without looking at your diet. Like, you'd be like, well, I'm trying to lose weight, but I don't care about what I eat. No, if you're trying to lose weight, every single thing that you are thinking about is about your food. You're like, okay, I'm trying to lose weight. What am I going to eat today? And that's how you have to deal with your racial biases, your unconscious biases. Discover them, because they are conscious. You'll see them.
Yeah.
Watch your behavior for a day. Write down what you do. Make a log. Who did I talk to today? And if you look at your log and everybody that you talk to looks like you, start reaching out. Reach out to somebody that doesn't look like you. I don't care if it's a barista at your coffee shop or the CEO of a corporation. I do that all the time. I talk to people that don't look like me, and I don't make them feel like I'm talking to them because they don't look like me. I say, hi,
Right.
how are you? When do you have a dog? I have a dog. How's your dog? Like, we should talk about dogs. And then we build a relationship. But I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Wendy and I do not look alike. She's much prettier. I'm just saying.
Oh, please. They look
So I'm just saying.
gorgeous.
Thank you, babe.
Yeah, that I agree. And Crystal, I love this. Stop bringing in BIPOC into organizations when you haven't changed the toxic people that are already there. That's
Amen.
a great comment.
Because one brown person feels oppressed. One brown person feels oppressed in that organization. 20 brown people feel like a unit, like they feel like a movement. But one brown person feels like,
yeah, what is going on? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I've got another question for you. From your perspective, what has been missing that DEI hasn't been able to move the needle more over the last 2 decades? Another tiny question.
Yes, I know. All of these yes and no's. I think that the diversity, equity, and inclusion movement has missed the fact that it really is about people's energy and who they are. It's not about making sure that you have like a color count at the board table. That's not what this is about. And I feel like that's what the diversity movement has moved forward. Right. And it also, please forgive me if I offend anyone by being who I am. So I'm just going to say the things that I'm saying. The diversity, equity, and inclusion movement is for white people. It is not for Black people. It is not for brown people. And I will tell you, I've never spoken to a brown or a Black person that was in a diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation that did not feel tokenized and bored. It is not for us. So if you don't want to build relationships, do diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like that's your ticket. Bring us in and talk about us like we're not even in the room. If you want to build relationships, then build relationships. And that's what I'm doing. So diversity, equity, and inclusion, I feel like for a long time has left. It's used Black people as educational props and tools. It said, that's their experience. Now feel bad. Cry, white people, cry. And that's terrible. I don't want to, like, no Black person needs to watch. I went to a Leadership Greater Washington program, and they showed me the video of Van Jones crying over the George Floyd incident. No, George Floyd murder, call it what it is. So I'm like sitting there watching, and I'm like, I don't need to see that at 8:30 in the morning. I am already anxious. I'm already upset. I'm already emotional every single day. I don't need that video. That video was to provoke an emotion out of the white people that were on the call. He is a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, because that's what he does. And I'm like, that's the conversation. And if you're a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, just do better. Like, that's all I'm saying. Think about what people of color, Black and brown people that are in this work, are feeling when you're doing these things. One of our tenets at Challenging Racism is do no harm. And when I came on, that was not actually the case. We were doing harm to people of color because we led white people through an experience to discover their unconscious biases and discover their whiteness. What we are now doing is revamping our curriculum so that we are creating relationships and changing hearts and minds, so that people are having conversations and discovering one another in an authentic way so that they can build from there. That's how you change a community. If you just check boxes with diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's all you're going to do. And then we still have the biases, we still have the feelings, we still have the fears, we still have the anxieties, and nothing has been changed. So that's what we've been doing for 20 years, but no longer.
Love it. Okay. Looking for questions here. We got move the needle. If anyone has something that they want to ask, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask one. Sorry, because I know I missed some as we were going through. Oh, I loved this. is this country really ready for a Black and woman vice president? We talked a little bit about it.
Mm,
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on out there right now.
yes.
Can we do it?
We better do it. We better do it. Like if we don't do it, you'll have much bigger issues than we have right now. Like I see people marching in the street, looting communities. I see people dying. Like not people are dying at the protest rallies. Like how much further do we have to go as a community, as a country, before we can have leadership that hears from the people that are on the ground? And I'm not saying, so I will tell you, I don't think it's a party thing. I think it's an individual person. I think that these are people that are leading us currently are not listening to all of us. And I'm just like, I can't say whether or not Barack Obama listened to everybody. I can say he listened to me. Like I can say he heard my voice, but maybe he wasn't the best listener either. I don't know that. But I know that right now I don't feel heard. And there are millions of people that also don't feel heard. So if we're not ready for Kamala, I don't know what you expect to happen in the next 4 years. Like so one of my notes, I have 5 points that people need to do if they're interested in being anti-racist. And one of them is vote. Vote. Vote, 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 vote. If you are not voting, you are part of the problem. And you need to be part of the solution. So yes, I think we're ready for it because I don't know what else. I don't know what the alternative is.
What are your other 4?
So you gave 2. Read a book. Read a book. I don't understand why we're not reading more. I don't care if you listen to a book. I don't care. Like however you get the knowledge into your system. So read something. The anti-racist book list is a great place to start. White fragility is also a good place, but you need to be kind of in discussion to move through that work. It's a painful process. So you need to probably find a group that's doing that work rather than read it alone in a dark room. Vote is definitely one of them. Share content from Black creators. Read it, understand it. So Gannett Newspapers, which owns the USA Today, they just made an equity pledge to diversify their newsroom. I think it's 17% they're looking at, 17%. Stamped from the beginning. Yes, fantastic. I'm reading it now. Oh my goodness, but I need a book club to go through that because there are things that people have to talk to me about, talk me off a ledge. But when you share and learn from Black creators, that is definitely a better voice and gives you a firsthand experience of what it is that you can learn about Black people, brown people, everyone. So you need to be diversifying your news feeds. Now I'm gonna go back to the point I was making before I got off on that. Sorry, the USA Today, they have diversified their news feed, their newsroom, and they just had, I was looking for it. I don't know where I put it. I read it yesterday. On the front page of yesterday's paper, they had a story about the new leadership of civil rights now that John Lewis has passed. I don't know most of the people on there. I had to look them up. I knew Alicia Garza and Ta-Nehisi Coates. That was it. So I had to look everyone up. And Color of Change, the guy from Color of Change.
Right.
But if you don't know those organizations, tag them in a Twitter feed and follow what they say. Do a Google alert on some of the things that they're putting out there in the news. All right, and my last one is donate. Donate to an organization that's doing this work. NAACP Legal Defense Fund is a great place to give money. They just fell, I think, $10,000 short of their goal for something that they were trying to raise money for. They're defending the protesters that are getting arrested. They're bringing charges for some of these communities that I think that right now they're about to sue the police department in Kenosha. They're doing a bunch of work that we don't have the time to go to. Like, even if you're a lawyer, do you have the time to go out there and bring a case against those people and support? No, we don't have. We are all invested in our lives right here. So give money to the people that are doing the work so that we can have a better country.
Yeah.
See, those are all.
I love it. Okay, so that did I miss one, or were 2 kind of close? I got vote, read, share content from Black authors, donate.
Oh,
Diversify?
no, my other one was listen.
Oh,
Listen. Listen to people that are Black and brown tell their stories, so that you can understand them better. So sharing the content is great. Support your Black businesses, support your, Black community organizations, support them. But listen to the stories. So every person that I know, um, every white person that I know, I have recommended that they watch Dave Chappelle, the little mini comedy show that he did.
yeah.
Um, or either that or the entire series of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. That gives you insight as to what to do next, because both of them talk about it. And if you listen to what they're saying, they can provide you some guidance, at least to get to the next step. But both of those are, Dave Chappelle blew me away. And I love Dave Chappelle. He's funny. He wasn't funny, like he was a little funny, but he he really was.
He was completely serious, and
Yes.
yeah, that I did watch that. I think after the last time we talked.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's amazing. But he really talked about why this movement is so important.
Yeah. I love that. Those are great recommendations. If anyone's got those links handy, we'll put them in the chat, but we'll try to follow up too.
Yes, and the USA Today, read the article from yesterday about the civil rights leaders. That was really fantastic.
USA Today.
Yes, and it gives you places to start. Like, who do I follow?
Right.
Follow all the people in there. There's online there's like, one of them is Brandon Scott from Baltimore.
Okay.
He's poised, I think, to be the new mayor here. He also was at the DNC. He was the one that stood up for Maryland. When they went to Maryland, he was there. So, I mean, there are people right in our own backyard that are going to be leading the civil rights movement going forward.
Great. Danielle, I saw a comment from you. That is heavy, but a great read. Which one are you referring to?
Stamped from the Beginning, maybe?
Stamped. Okay.
Yes, I have that book. It is very heavy. And it is also written by Kendi.
Yeah.
So he did a historical.
Didn't he do a children's version of it too?
He did Stamped from the Beginning. Young adult, not children, young adult.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. He did anti-racist for babies. Then he did anti-racist for youth. So he has anti-racist for everyone. But the Stamped from the Beginning he did, and he was actually in partnership with another author.
Very good.
So
okay.
Wendy, I'm just going to say, are you talking about Kendi? Because when he was in DC all the way up until this summer, I feel like I got this job. So Kendi had an anti-racist center in DC
at American University. Yeah.
They must have pissed him off because he got up and left and went to Boston. Now, I don't know who's been to Boston, but remember when you said, where'd you say you went, Colorado? Where'd you say you went, Wendy, and you didn't see any Black people?
Boulder.
Yes. Boston's the same way. I go to Boston, I'm like, I don't know how Black people live here. I have never been in a large city and felt so oppressed. Boston needs some work. So I said, well, he definitely went to a place that needs him.
Yeah.
But he left DC. I was like, oh, I was going to go on a trip to the anti-racist set. Nope, he's gone. So American lost him, and I have no idea what they did. But they must have angered him in some way because he left abruptly. Like, he just put out a release and was like, I'm out. I'm going to Boston. And they took the whole center with them.
Interesting. So yes. Wendy Mumma just shared that his group at Boston University has also been providing data for the COVID racial tracker. So yeah, I mean, as if there isn't enough, the pandemic health issues can hit the Black community so much harder. There's so much, it's interesting because when I'm thinking about representation and I'm thinking about, discrimination, like this, COVID discriminates, it seems, as well as many other things. So I was just thinking about when I was working in my garden yesterday and I was pulling up the roots of I have this rock garden and all these weeds were so intertwined and they were even covering up the roots. And I thought, you know what? This is like a metaphor for life. Like I can't even get to the rocks to move. Like, I've got to remove them. I have got to pull the roots out. I have to reshape the foundation. Like, there's a lot of work that has to be done. Like, this stuff that we're dealing with in this country is so systemic. Like, it's so rooted, that deep work has to be done. And I think there's a lot of people who are willing to, and there's a lot of people who still don't see it. Like, they're just up here at the flowering level. Like,
there are lots of people that have no clue
right.
about systemic racism. They have
And
no
some
clue.
refuse to want to look at it, but some kind of want to. But like for the ones on the fence, where do we, or you know, who could?
So I just wanted to take a point that you made about COVID discriminating. COVID is a pandemic, right? COVID is a pandemic, and it is not actually discriminating. Do you know what it's actually doing? It's actually revealing all the discrimination that we already had. So we had this pandemic that we already had, which was racism, and then we had COVID on top of it. So COVID weakened our immune system to the place where we could see, as a country, all of the things that we had done wrong with racism, because that was the true underlying condition. So we are now suffering two pandemics. We're suffering COVID and we're suffering racism. And we can see all of the systems that are out of whack, all of the things that are going awry, and where we're not supporting Black and brown people in our communities. So the healthcare system, there are whole groups that are focused on writing the healthcare system for Black women. So Black women had a rate of dying in childbirth like a third world nation. And no one was talking about. So when I look at the paper, let's say about 5 months ago, 6 months ago, before COVID was really every single article on the front of the paper was about politics, but none of it was about our communities. So I would pick up a newspaper and it would talk to me for 7 pages about what Trump said in some press conference, that tomorrow they'd be writing another 7 pages about something he said that day. And none of it was true or relevant, and I didn't care. But the fact that Black women are dying at a rate similar to those in third world countries, like we don't have healthcare, that's alarming. The fact that Black men are dying, not just by the hands of the police, they're being hunted. So I saw an article, a post that my son put up yesterday, and he said our true crime as a nation in this time was not properly prosecuting George Zimmerman. That's where we went wrong in this fight right now. And that we let that man get away with murder. And as a nation, we turned the page and kept going. So I'm going to say, yeah, we have health disparities. We have issues, and we have socioeconomic disparities, which are getting, our wealth divide is getting much, much, much deeper. Talk about education. So public education was supposed to be the great equalizer. Now we have disparities, significant disparities have been there since Brown versus Board of Education. Those disparities have done nothing but grown. We have a classroom that's run by people that don't understand the difference between how I rear my children and how you might rear yours. But I will tell you, Black mothers, they are different. They do things. And there are many, many comedians and people that tell the story about their moms and how their moms did things. And I will say that when you come from a strong Black mother, like I did, there are certain things you just did not do in school. Like you just did not do. But some of those things might be challenging to somebody that has no idea what that environment looks like. So I had to teach my daughters when they went to school to advocate. I had to teach them how to ask questions, because I was like, I don't want somebody to do something to you and you to just take it, because I'm a very strong personality. I don't know if you guys can tell that, but I'm a very strong personality. And my daughters, sometimes they just stand behind me when we go into places because they're like, Mommy's going to push through and then I'm just going to follow through in her wake. And that's how I was led when I was little. But I had to teach her how to advocate in the school system because I want her to have a voice. So if she doesn't raise her hand, she may be, questioned for not participating. She may be marked down. My son was very active. He was a very active boy. But that doesn't mean he has a discipline problem. It just means he has energy, and that's who he is. We have to embrace that in the education system. So there's a whole thing in education where Black and brown kids are being suspended, and it starts the school to prison pipeline. And if we don't correct that with mass incarceration, if we keep letting people talk about law and order and that being a code word for lock up Black people, these are all things that are happening on a regular basis, and none of them are in the paper and none of them are being reported. So what I'm asking of you is watch a documentary. Watch 13th. If you have not seen 13th, watch 13th. There is a study guide online. 1619 is a podcast. If you have not listened to it, listen to it. There's a whole book that was written really just going through all of the history of slavery and how that's impacted us today with sharecropping and the new Jim Crow. Like I could keep going, but if you just did those two things, 13th and 1619, and understand how politics and media shape where we are right now, and then start reading with a racial lens when you go into some of these newspapers and start reading to see where the news actually is.
It should really be required reading. Wow. So I'm looking at the time and we have 8 minutes left. So before everyone jumps up, thank you, Alicia. My gosh. Like I think we need to invite you back because I think that we could talk like again and again and again. So I do want to say that we have so what Conscious Capitalism is doing is that we're doing coffee 1 month and then a happy hour the next month. So next month, our date is, what is it, Tanya? I wrote it down. October 6th from 4 to 5. And we're going to be talking about culture and how to maintain your culture virtually, because this is still going on. But we're still working on our panel, but I guarantee you it's going to be fun. Oh, and I also just wanted to shout out, so two of our participants today, Wendy Muma and Danielle Marshall, are offering a free webinar tomorrow afternoon from 4 to 5 about a series that they're going to be doing. Let's talk about racial equity in business. And this is just kind of an intro about some of the work that they're doing, but then they're going to be offering an intensive 6-week series after that. And if you want to find out more about it, you can register, look for Conscious Collaboratory online, or even follow C3MD. It's on the C3MD's website because we're co-sponsoring that along with 1776. Tracy Turner. So there's a lot going on. We're continuing the conversation around racial equity. We're continuing the conversation to challenge racism. I'm just going to say, we definitely want to have you come back. You're just a delight and a joy. And you know what? There's nothing better than speaking truth. You know, I think we all need to do it, and we all need to listen more and better. So with that, any other questions? I think, did I cover all the housekeeping stuff, Tanya?
Yep, I also threw it in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Yay. So we're just so delighted that you guys came. And we would love to also invite you, if you're not a member, consider joining Conscious Capitalism. We are, now we've got this virtual thing down. We've got some great programming. We have this beautiful network of people that, they want to elevate humanity from so many perspectives. And that's what we're talking about here. In the work we do with our businesses, personally, we want to continue the conversation. We welcome your ideas if you want to be a guest writer on our blog. We want to hear what you're doing in your businesses to make them conscious, to keep them conscious, to continue opening up that conversation. And so what I want to do, because I feel like I've been ranting, and even though I've been active listening with Alicia, and she's wonderful, but let's just all take a moment before we go into the day and put your feet flat on the ground, and let's just sit up and let's close our eyes for a sec. And there's a lot of stuff going on out there, right? So let's just kind of tune in with our bodies. Feel your sits bones kind of rooted, and sit up straight. And let's just take a nice deep breath in for 3 counts, and then we're going to hold it. So breathe in 3. 1, 2, 3, and hold it for 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. Now audibly exhale for 6. 5, 6. And let's do that again. Breathe in. 3 and hold. And exhale. And just remember, anytime throughout the day, you can connect with your breath. You can reset your mind, your body, your spirit. It's part of how we can be more mindful, how we can be more conscious. And you know what? I do this even in non-conscious capitalism meetings, and people are beginning to embrace it. With that, 3 minutes. Any other last questions from anybody?
Oh, can I say a thing?
Please.
We have a How to Be an Anti-Racist book club coming up. It's not a book club. It's a discussion about how to be an anti-racist.
Nice.
It's coming up at the end of September. It's free. It's on Eventbrite. If you'd like to join, please do.
Do you have that link handy, or we can follow up with that?
I can email it to you later.
Okay. And
on my iPad, there's just too many things going on.
And I'll put some of those notes and links into a follow-up email for participants. I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of their day. Oh, and thank you so much. So we had folks donating to Challenging Racism, and we also had folks donating to Columbia Community Care. So we'll let you know. But, you know, guys, if you still want to do that, I believe that link is still alive. If you feel as though you'd like to make a donation and you're able, that's super. And I'd also like to just say to any folks that might be interested in sponsoring an upcoming Conscious Coffee or an upcoming Purposeful Pints, or we call it Conscious Cocktails, whichever, you're welcome to reach out to me or Tracy Turner or Tanya Rapaz, and we're just pop us an email, and we'd love to consider your sponsorship. And let's see, what else? Thanks, Alicia. Yep, Danielle, Eventbrite, great. Thank you for finding that. She found it. The Eventbrite for the Challenging Racism tickets. Cool. Wonderful. And with that, we're going to give you all 2 minutes before you hop on your next Zoom meeting.
Well, Wendy, let me just say thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This was so awesome. And a great way to start my day with the breathing. And now I feel fresh and renewed.
You are a delight. And the work that you're putting out there is really important. And, you know, you're important. Like, you're going to do this wherever you go and wherever you are. And
Yes.
we appreciate that. And I'm grateful to call you friend.
Thank you.
And we need a doggy date soon.
Yes. With wine. Wine doggy date. Doggy date wine.
Outside, anything goes, right?
Yes.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alicia. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Unmute and you can say bye.
Bye, Alicia.
Thanks, Alicia. It was great.
Thank
Bye,
you
Alicia.
for your
Thank you.
comments. Yeah, Chris.
Bye. Thank you.
This is awesome. And thank you, Wendy, for sharing.
My pleasure. Thanks, Hungbin. Nice
Thanks
to
for
Good to
hosting,
be
Wendy.
here with everybody.
Yeah. Cool.
Bye, Wendy. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much. Oh, I want to save
okay.
these notes before we go off.
How do you save the notes?
Well, I think there's a, hi, Tracy, you're still here. It's us. So I think I can preset that. And it wasn't preset like we discovered with the co-host thing. So I'm just copying all of them and pasting them into a document right now so that I have it, but you can save the chat if you put it in your meeting planning. So next time I'll know to do that. And whoever hit record, thank you.
Oh, was it recording this whole time?
I think it was. I didn't realize it, but when I said, oh, we're not recording, Wendy Muma privately said, oh, yes, we are, and we can get rid of that later. So.
Oh, I didn't notice it because usually you see the recording button. So I didn't even.
Yeah, it was up in the corner and hidden. It says it's recording now. So at any rate. All right. So Tracy, are you still there? Your mute is on. she might be away. We just need to work on who we're going to get into the next workshop. So maybe we can regroup on a afternoon happy hour kind of thing.
Sure. I mean, what day is it? It's only Tuesday, right? If you want to, we could schedule another planning meeting until we get our momentum.
Yeah.
Because did you also think that Ebony would be a good person for conscious?
I
for
did,
culture?
and I was going to reach out, but I wanted to talk with Tracy first about if she asked anyone, because I did mention it to Kimberly and she's interested, but I'm not sure she totally understands conscious capitalism yet. But I think that she would bring great things to the table in terms of, you know, virtual and, you know, what you can and can't expect and can and can't do. But
that's right. We can have subject matter experts who are not already indoctrinated.
Exactly. And that's like, I want to invite them in. So did I hit everything on the list? I hope I remembered to.
Yes, I'm sorry. I took myself off mute and I was about to ask a question and then you asked the question. So
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. I'm not, you know, I think that's my biggest weakness is that I'm not like loud and not loud, but
You speak up.
assertive.
Yeah.
In inserting. But since you already were handling it, it's not like we lost anything.
The other thing though, too, sometimes on Zoom, like raise your hand, because sometimes I can see it, but I was trying to go through the chat as well at the same time. But all right, I'm going to stop recording.
Okay. All right.
I'll get an email.